So the only time I ever do like multiple book reviews in one video is when I talk about sequels, because I really like doing book reviews and I usually have a lot to say. I usually have almost 5 minutes worth. So if I'm talking about 5 books or 4 books, that's too long of a video. So I do individual book reviews, but I also don't post spoilers. So I do not do single book reviews on sequels, because then I would have to spoil the first book in order to do that, and then that's difficult. So after I've read like maybe 4 sequels, I talk about them briefly so that I can still let you know what I thought about them without giving anything away. I will have links to my full reviews of the first books in these series linked down below if you are interested in hearing about that. The first book that I'm going to talk about I actually do have a full review for, because I was sent a copy of it by the publisher to review, and that is The Burning World by Isaac Marion, which is a sequel to Warm Bodies. So that is my exception. I will leave the video linked up there if you do want to see it, if you don't care about spoilers, or if you have read the first one. And I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it, but it took me a little bit to get into. I thought it was pretty slow moving, and I felt like there was a lot of stuff that kind of just confused me more about the whole zombie apocalypse thing instead of provide answers. I also didn't really enjoy the direction the story seemed to be going in, but there were big parts of it that I really did like, and I liked the writing, and there were a lot of really good inner thoughts that I liked, and there were a few really good characters in it, so there were definitely aspects of it that I really enjoyed, but there were some things about it that I didn't like very much. There's going to be a 3rd book, which I will probably read. The next sequel that I read is a big disappointment for me. I feel like so far this is my biggest disappointment of the year. And that is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, and I know you're probably shocked. Everyone loved this book. Most people loved it more than the first one, but I don't see it. I don't. Ugh. There were parts of this book that I absolutely adored. There were pieces of it that had my heart, mostly the characters. I loved the characters. I loved reading about the characters doing specific things. I did not like all the little schemes. There were too many schemes. There were too many tiny little schemes with so many intricate parts that were not explained, and they made no sense. And like, I understood what the outcome of each scheme was, but I didn't understand how their scheme got to their outcome. It made no sense, and it pissed me off. And it wasn't just that there were 2 schemes that made no sense. There were like 90 million schemes in this book. There were way too many schemes. And it was like, oh, this didn't work, so let's do this instead. Oh no, this didn't work. I guess we gotta think of another scheme. Oh, and that one also didn't work, so let's think of another stupid scheme. Oh my god. It was really frustrating, and it really frustrated me. I was incredibly frustrated reading this book, and then when I finished it, I feel like there were a lot of things that were resolved by weird random things that happened that weren't really explained. It was just like, oh, I guess I need a reason for this to be resolved, so let me just make up this thing and not explain where that came from and just have that resolve it. So there we go. The story's good now. So there were a lot of things that I did not like about this book. And the characters were the only redeeming quality. If it weren't for the characters, this would have been 2 stars for me for sure, but I gave it 3 stars because the characters are all my babies. But this was a huge letdown for me. Let's stop talking about this now. The next sequel that I read is The Shadow Hour by Melissa Gray, which I really enjoyed. I didn't love it quite as much as the first one, but I still did really like it, so I gave this 4 stars. I just didn't remember enough from the first book to fully understand some of the things that they were doing. For the most part, it was fine. It wasn't hard to follow or anything. There were just a few important things that I wish I had remembered. But I still really enjoyed it. It was still really good, and it was a lot of fun, and I'm really interested to read the 3rd one. And the last sequel that I have to talk to you about is Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. If you've been around in the last couple months, you would know that I read Throne of Glass for the first time recently and was in love with it, and I have no idea what took me so long to read it. I don't know what's wrong with me. I wanted to read Crown of Midnight directly after reading Throne of Glass, but I didn't have it. So I read another book, and then I bought Crown of Midnight and the other 2 books after that as well, and I loved Crown of Midnight. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I liked it a little bit more than Throne of Glass. I think pretty much the only reason I liked it a little bit more was because I was already invested in the characters. So I was just thrown into the story with characters I already loved, and I think that was pretty much the only reason why I loved it so much more. I thought the story was really interesting. I loved the characters and what happens with characters. There were some really infuriating parts, but I'm pretty sure they were supposed to be infuriating, so good job, Sarah. But I loved it. I loved it so much. I'm definitely going to continue with the series at some point. I just would like to take a little break. I've been reading a lot of contemporary, realistic YA recently. So I'll get back into the series rather soon, I'm sure, and you will see those books in my next sequels video, I'm sure. So those are the sequels that I have read since my last sequels video, and I will be back at it with another one in the near future. Have a good day, guys.